everyone.
It's been a while.
I want you to meet Aldo Ghiozzi. He has a long laundry list of titles associated with the tabletop gaming community and is the individual responsible for putting together this whole West Coast large family of gaming conventions. Aldo, can you tell us a little bit, share with the community a little bit about who you are and how you went from being like young Aldo interested in gaming to kind of where you're at today? I mean, I'm sure that's a very long story, but the highlight reel.
I played games just like everybody else. Grew up on D&D, kid, all that other stuff.
I was a kid once.
And one day, some group of buddies and I in 1994 said, we can make a game. And so we started making these really bad games. And when I say bad, I mean, they played fun, but they were just poor quality, poor art, poor layout, whatever. And I just went to a Pacificon and I said, I'm going to sell these games that I made at Kinko's. And ended up being a distributor was there. And he thought one of them was funny. So I started doing this part-time, selling these like not the greatest games. And I just started trying it. Well, I discovered distributors and I said, wow, I could sell a whole bunch. So I ended up making a couple more not so great games, but I had a whole bunch of people I started meeting in the industry and they're like, how could you sell those awful games to distribution and they won't talk to me?
How can I do that?
And I was like, oh, I can help you. So I started helping people get into distribution and that's when I started my company. Impressions, which is a game distribution service, and that was in 2000, and started handling the wholesale for a lot of game publishers. In the midst of it, just got to work with a lot of game brands that many people know. The most famous, I started working with Isaac from Cephalofair before Gloomhaven. So we handled his distribution, Slugfest Games with all the Red Dragon Inn series, Goodman Games with the ACC RPG, Modifius, Free League. So a lot of those companies, we handled all that stuff, and that became my full-time job in 2001. In the midst, we wanted to promote RPG some more, started Free RPG Day, the event. And then 6 years ago, I actually sold my business and Free RPG Day and had the opportunity to be on the board of GAMA, our trade organization, the game manufacturers, gamma.org. But I'd always been involved in local game conventions, from selling my clients' games to helping manage the shows. So I help manage Pacificon still to this day. But now I'm one of the two owners of KublaCon. And KublaCon's been around forever. Oh no, that's what I do. And we just had this is where it leads to, our first annual KublaCon Fall, the first time we've done a second KublaCon, unless you count the Kubla cruise that we did this year. So we're trying to do this Kubla family community thing now. As my wife is like, oh, you don't have to fly to all these big game conventions anymore. I'm like, no, not really. And she's like, good. So I'm like, okay, I'll stay nearby, but I'm going to do this KublaCon stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously a lot of involvement with a lot of game companies for a long time. Blessed is probably the word. When you have a hobby that you can do for a living, I just can't say enough about it.
But you have to.
Wow. Yeah, that's the dream, right? To be able to do what you love. So, yeah, you touched on this is the inaugural run, if you will, the first annual KublaCon Fall. What led or what inspired you to create this second or quote third event for the Kubla family of events?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously with not doing impressions or Free RPG Day anymore, my time was available. And my wife always jokes, she's like, you got to do something. So,
Wait, is it because you're just twiddling your thumbs and you're antsy and you want to do something? Or
well, I mean, I think it's more of the fact she needs me to do more than watch Netflix series and, you do the laundry every once in a while. But it's great to be able to play games with all my friends and hang out with them. And KublaCon is just such a community thing and such a family thing. So as I said, I've gone to a lot of game conventions over the years worldwide. A lot of people know that, like, for example, SaltCon in Salt Lake City has a series of 4 conventions. They do 4 shows a year. The Geekway to the West people in St. Louis, they also do 4. The guy with Strategicon does 3 down in LA. So, and I think the Genghis Con people do 2 or 3 in Denver. But either way, so there's already been this precedent.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, let's do a second show. And so 6 months later from KublaCon Memorial Day is November. So Veterans Day, there's no other show in Northern California or the Bay Area on it. So it kind of does well to not hurt the other shows or act like we're competing with the
Compete.
other
Yeah.
shows. Yeah, exactly. This test was kind of like, does anybody want another KublaCon? Does anybody want another game convention? My hopes are it's yes. I think a lot of new people came to the show. I know a lot of new people, like almost 20% were, I've never been to a KublaCon. 5% were like, I've
Really?
never been to a game convention ever. Yeah,
Wow.
I'm a data guy. I'm a nerdy data
No,
guy.
that's great that you have that kind of data already. I am too.
Yeah, so like, looking at my spreadsheets the whole time, what percent of our people were veterans and what percent, ran games, and everybody's like staring at me like going, okay, Aldo, whatever. And I was like, yeah. So it looks like people are happy about it. Jopji, the original owner of KublaCon, really set a way on how to do the convention, and we've followed that out of respect for what he's done, definitely. And it's a successful formula. And having just a great staff, really, the family community thing, it is just, I don't know, it's just different.
Yeah.
Like even my wife says that, why are you going? I was like, my friends, they're just who they are. And it's just fun and exciting.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, there's kind of a strong bonding element when it comes to gaming. So you mentioned Veterans Day. You mentioned that that's the weekend that you fell on. I noticed that there was this veterans badge. You were allowing veterans at like a discounter to come in for free. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that? I want to make sure people know about that.
$0.
Yeah.
$0. Actually, the funny thing, I'll even give shout out to staff again. It was $0, but I don't know if you know the law changed in California where you have to tell your service fees and everything.
You have to charge your service fees?
Yeah. We had to charge them the service fee. We couldn't, and it was $2. And we can't avoid that because it's through the system that we use tabletop events. So everybody gets charged a service fee, even the people who pay, the regular rates, and it comes out to whatever in the end. So they had to pay their $2. Well, one of our staff said, look, I'm going to go to the bank and get $2 bills. We're going to give back every veteran who pre-registered their $2. And we had 2 other staff members say, I went in to help you on it. So we actually, every veteran that pre-registered got their $2, but every veteran that walked up, there's no service fee. It's just, it's 0.
Yeah.
They just come and they pre-register and they got a challenge coin. They got a free game from GMT Games, Twilight Struggle, which is like one of the top 10 games ever. And then we had a veterans get together drink session, celebration at the bar for an hour. So they basically got a free drink from us, a free pin, a free challenge coin, a free game, and a free convention. So the goal is to keep that theme sitting around this time, whether we do KublaCon Fall before or after Veterans Day, because it floats.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a push. It was good. I'm actually surprised more veterans didn't come.
Right.
I thought we were going to get flooded with hundreds of veterans, and basically we got like 100, which to me I think was a good call out of the 1,182 attendees that we got. So
yeah,
breaking 1,000 was incredible for year one.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I mean, I'm hoping that, with getting word out and sharing about the event, that number grows. But I just think that's amazing that you did that for veterans. I love that. I want people to know about it, everybody.
Veterans or active military,
Yes.
It's just, I think it's a good, warm, feel good, especially with some war gamer, so many war gamers.
Yes. Yeah.
Lived some of these things,
So let's talk about the other Kubla events that fall under the umbrella, just so everyone, for those of you who haven't heard of, KublaCon Fall or the family of events, I want them to know what else is out there. Can you tell us a little bit about those?
Yeah, so we've started calling KublaCon in May, which is Memorial Day weekend every year for the past 24 years. We started calling it KublaCon Prime. And it just kind of is caught on now because we really, as a staff, had to distinguish, wait, which show are we discussing right now? KublaCon Prime, Memorial Day weekend, every Memorial Day weekend since 2001 was also called Manifest. Prior to that, where I first met Jopji and even my partner, Mike Eckert, in 1996, when he had a booth there, I had a booth there. And I remember I told you I was selling my crappy games. So Mike was selling his crappy game too. That's every Memorial Day. And then we decided, and I'm going to say my cop out and do a shout out. My wife owns a travel agency. He and a lot of others were doing these cruises. My wife's just like, why don't you do a game cruise? I'm like, oh, you're right, we can. So we do the Kubla cruise. That's small. It's a little over 100 people go on the cruise. It's a small space. We do it out of San Francisco only, just to kind of build, again, the community, the locals, and then, of course, first annual KublaCon Fall. So right now, we're just closing out fall, and we've already opened KublaCon Prime for badges, put it out to exhibitors, getting events going. So the whole kit and caboodle is going to, cycle all the time. And the Kubla Cruise is just hanging out with your friends. It's nothing as formal
Right.
as fall or Prime.
But you get dedicated time to game, which is what I mean, especially if you're in the gaming industry. That's what I usually hear is you don't have time to play the games because you're busy making them and networking. And
yeah, there's actually an event called the Gathering of Friends that Alan Moon does. He does it in, I believe, Pennsylvania. And it's like invite only to industry only people. And it's become this big invite only where industry people can come and play games the whole time. Not necessarily come and promote your own, but just play games.
Yeah.
So ironically, I've never been there.
So going back to KublaCon Fall, what do you think, now that we've talked about the family of events and, there's been some mention of other conventions throughout the year, gaming conventions, what do you think would be the thing that makes KublaCon Fall stand out against your other family events or against other conventions?
Well, so let me start with a shout out. This talks about community. I want to do a shout out to the other game conventions that are in the area because we're friends with them. We go to them. At the beginning of the year, President's Day weekend, you have DundraCon. DundraCon's like going to be 50 years old. That is heavy RPGs. Of course, there's board and card and other things, but they kind of grew out of the RPG side. They've been doing about 1,400 attendees now, to my understanding. Again, don't quote me on the perfection there. We have Pacificon. Pacificon is Labor Day weekend. That's been going on for 30 or something, 40 years. That was the first convention I bought a booth at with my fun games. And that's Labor Day weekend. And I even sat on staff managing that for years as well. And that looms at close to 1,000 now. Oh, and Pacificon's heavy war gaming, war gaming, miniatures gaming, things like that. Big Bad Con, that is capped at 1,000 people, and that's in October. And that's for people who want a safe space, in the gaming industry. And then RageCon, I'm going to count them in Reno. He's got about 1,400. That's a really cool show. He's really heavy on the new board and card games. He's really hip on letting people say, this is the hot stuff in board and card gaming. That's his heavy twist on that. And he's up in Reno at the end of June. And then there's KublaCon. KublaCon May had 3,622 this past year.
Wow.
It just grew out of just a heavy board game presence. But we have everything: D&D Adventurers League, Pathfinder Society. We were the first to do a PaizoCon at convention as well. So we had PaizoCon at KublaCon. And then, of course, KublaCon Fall just did 1,180 as well. But, we try to give everybody everything at the KublaCons out there. But again, it's a very heavy board game show. Proto-spiels have grown a lot, playtesting games at every show. Hopefully I didn't forget anybody. I don't think I forgot a convention.
Wow.
But shout out to all of them. We get to see all our friends all the time. So
my takeaway from that was that KublaCon gives you a little taste of everything. Is how I'm interpreting that. And I can attest to that. Everyone who will see the footage that I took at KublaCon Fall, there was so much to do in the time that I was there. I could not get to everything as much as I tried. There was a whole area, I think, set aside for LARPing.
LARPing stands for live action role playing.
That I have never done. I've never participated. I've never actually seen it. And I'm so curious. I could not get to it. I kept trying. There were so many other areas. So if that's something that you're interested in, or if you just want a taste of everything so that you can find your passion, then that's my suggestion, is to go to one of these conventions.
Yeah, and something we didn't have at Fall that we have at Prime is this young players room, this kids room. I mean, it gets hundreds of kids going through there. It's a great program. And that's really probably what really spiraled KublaCon growth, was that we started being family friendly long ago.
Right.
And having this teen and young players room. And nobody wants all us old people growing older, hunching over a table. We need new blood. And D&D 5th edition has definitely brought in a lot of kids. And even the mass market stuff like Floating Kittens and Cards Against Humanity, has really gotten a new generation. But, we really encourage that at KublaCon. We didn't
Yeah.
have kids. We didn't have kids room at KublaCon Fall, but with the way it's going now, we're definitely bringing the few things we didn't have at Fall. People asked, "There's like, where was painting?" And it was like, so we're going to bring painting at Fall. We're going to bring the young players and teens room. We're going to do auction, and we're going to do a second flea market, our first flea market on Friday. You missed it. I know we talked.
Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit about this flea market?
Well, every game convention has a flea market. It really is. It's beyond the exhibit hall where you're buying new games or buying stuff you can't find from artists and things like that. But the flea market is, of course, it's gamers. Remember,
Yeah.
you said there's just so many games out there and you can't play all of them. There's so many gamers that eventually go, gosh, I bought that game like I'll sell it. I lost
Yeah.
money. But, you know,
Okay.
so people buy tables.
So it's consumer to consumer.
Oh, yeah. And
I see.
It's fun flea market negotiation. Like literally, somebody will put a $20 game and go, look, I'll buy all 5 of these, but give them to me for 15 a piece. And it's just total flea market. But we had a huge line because of capacity control and fire and all that other stuff. We have our ideas. We know what we're doing. Like this first year, we're like, okay, flea market is going to this space, so we don't.
Yeah.
Just junk like that. So it's lessons learned. But again, I think it comes back to, people are having a good time and having a second KublaCon is justified. Now, are we doing 4 KublaCons a year like the others? I don't think I have my brain, let alone my wife probably won't want that to happen. But,
But we've got 3 events for the year. There we go.
yeah. I'll call it 2.5. The cruise is half because, again, it's just open gaming, basically.
Right.
We all just bring our own games. We all share in the conference center, and we all come and go as we please. We get the drinks and the food delivered to us.
That's awesome.
Pretty funny. Yeah. So
that's awesome. We've talked a bit about, if you haven't been to one of these conventions, check it out. It's a taste of everything. But what I'm also learning going to these gaming conventions is that it's not just for consumers, that there is a lot there for people who are looking to be in the industry, to become a part of it. Can you talk a little bit about, for example, I was going to say, can you talk about what we did, what there was at Fall, and I'm sure there will be at Prime for people who are interested in trying to get into this industry?
Yeah. So as much as we're all gamers, I work in the industry, but I play games too. There's tons of us out there. And at KublaCon Fall, you were running into publishers that were there. You were running into game designers, and even count the retailers. There are local game stores that are there within the industry as well. So, and then a ton of people are aspiring, they want to aspire to create games. They're artists in real life trying to get art gigs, and why not do art in board and card games or, covers and things like that. So I do a couple of seminars that are industry based for trying to, like I said, spur that younger generation or keep more people coming in, and about a dozen or so people show up, which is great. And that's same at Kubla Prime too. But there are, I wish my friend Brianna came to Fall, but she goes to Prime and she's the lead. She's the art director for a division of Asmodee. Luke Laurie doing Andromeda's Edge and Dwellings of Everdell. I mean, big game designer now. Our Protospiel room is actually filled with tons of creatives that have done game designs on so much. Scott Caputo runs KublaCon Prime. He's done Whistle Stop and a whole bunch of other games. So you're going to get a lot of people there that you are just unassuming people that you just run into and you're like, oh, you designed this? If you want to get in the industry, you might as well go to these industry events.
Right. I went to Big Bad Con and then also KublaCon, which, they were fairly close together within a couple of weeks. And that was what was really eye-opening for me, was how much was there for people interested in getting in, seminars to learn how, but also like ways for you to connect with other people in the industry, either share your work or have discussions. Or the Protospiel was very new to me. I didn't know what that was. That was really cool to see. In my brain, I thought Protospiel and playtesting was exactly the same thing, but obviously not. So that was it's really cool to see. And there's a lot of support, I think, built into that if you go to one of these conventions and you start making these connections. So I just want to make sure everybody knows about that, because that was very eye-opening and really cool to see. If you are interested in getting in the industry, you need to come to one of these conventions. Let's see. I know you touched a little bit about changes you were going to make to next year, because I know feedback is still rolling in. It sounds like you've already touched on some of those things, the flea market.
And that's to the physical show. Like, People were talking about the venue as well, and you haven't been to KublaCon Prime yet. We're going to get you there.
Yep.
But everybody's so used to the Hyatt in Burlingame for Prime. It's been there for 23 years, 24 years. And everybody's like, oh, it's home. And, but we needed to try this because the Burlingame Hyatt had an event on this weekend for us. So, we've always thought of trying to get a bigger spot, and this convention center down in Santa Clara. But, people gave us their feedback. Like, I'm going to tell you point blank, we've already talked to the hotel, and like, people are like, hey, Aldo, the food here is so expensive. Even the grab and go, everybody's like, this is a lot more than, what they're used to. And people on food and drink, they got an admin charge on your bill. I don't know if you noticed that. And we're like, we definitely address that with people and, or with the hotel, and they came back to us and they're just like, well, you guys changed a lot. Like people were moving tables and this, and we can't really have, so we were both learning from each other, like, what was good and bad for everything. The space was a little tight in the exhibit hall. We're going to change that. We needed more private RPG rooms. We recognized that. We've heard people, we tried these little portable partition walls. Yeah. People are like, some of us get too enthusiastic in our game, and so we're changing that. We're going to get more open gaming space. We had to open a room on the fly, connected to the convention center. So,
which is a good problem to have.
it is. Again, we didn't expect. I mean, our whole goal was budgeting for 800 people, and nearly 1,200, almost a 50% increase. To be able to look at having the entire convention hall, move the flea market in there for more space, so people can just come and go. There's no line. Putting miniatures out in that open convention space instead of the cramped room. Because all the terrain, remember I told you, I was like, did you see this D&D terrain?
Yeah.
Have that in this bigger open space so people can play around it with a lot more, walking around space because it's such a large thing. Miniatures, people want that. They need butt room. Around and go up and down and, all of that. And so there's little things like that learning in your spot, but we continue about feedback from people about what they like and dislike from the convention center. Signage, I'll tell you that right now. People said to us, they're like, I didn't know where registration was. I was going back and forth. I was like, yeah, the registration sign was like this,
yeah.
And there was a map in front, but the map really didn't say go this way to register first. It was just, we had some lessons learned that we take for granted. KublaCon Prime, you walk into the hotel at High Burlingame and we are just stinking there in all, all our glory.
There's a big old giant red arrow.
There is no question, where we're at. Yeah, so I think it's great for all of that. The attendees trust us to the money, which was very small amount. We definitely wanted to bribe everybody to come cheap $40, but we did get people going, well, I just want one day, and I was like, well, $40 is cheaper than a one day at Kubla. And they're like, yeah, but I still just want one day. Don't I get to pay less? So it was just, so we're going to incorporate all these little nuances.
That's great. That's great. So everyone looking forward to next year, you kind of have a little idea what might be going on. I also wanted to touch real quick on tabletop events because of, the number of conventions I've been to and now starting to go to gaming conventions. I really liked using tabletop events, and I don't know that people are aware of this. You may not be, but it was really cool to be able to have this kind of calendar. It wasn't just me signing up for things and there being a listing of here's the events you've signed up for. There was even this little calendar with a nice visual with blocks of time for you. And it won't let you sign up for something if you're already signed up for another thing.
It yells at you if you cross over.
Yeah. Trust me, I had that. I was trying to sign up for too much. How long have you been using tabletop events? And
it's pre-COVID. I have to say, people are getting used to tabletop events, but at the same time, a lot of people see it as an archaic system. As cool as it is to get a seat in a game and know you're getting that seat versus what a standard used to be, what's called a shuffler. Like 20 people go in for a game in a time slot, and it randomly chooses who gets to go in. And that's just got people angry. The tabletop events takes care of it, but it has become a little, I want to say, archaic. It doesn't have an app So we keep asking, will you do a phone app? Because it goes off the side of your phone. You got to turn it sideways.
Yeah.
All that other stuff. And then there's a new one actually called Cardboard Dot Events. And that system was used by RageCon this year up in Reno. And Jeff Jones, who owns RageCon, also owns a Game Castle franchise in Reno, who also came to KublaCon Fall doing the Envoy events for us, running tournaments. So he's active, and he used to use tabletop events for a while. Excuse me, there's good and bad for all, but Cardboard Events is, a newer system whereby tabletop events were just used to it. We use it for our back end. We deal with exhibitors in the background. We deal with what type of registration everybody is, a veteran versus GMs versus when they bought, who they bought, all that other stuff. And it keeps track of everything for us.
Right.
But again, a couple of people are like, the website looks a little archaic. And we're like, but that's the tabletop events.
Right. It's not us.
It's not us.
Yeah.
But it is great to be able to schedule and have it yell at you.
You can't do this.
Yeah.
And
I do like that it won't allow you to sign up for 2 events at once. So you're not taking a spot that could be used by someone else. But also, I will attest, now that I've been doing this a little while, that it is so easy to think that just because this block bumps against this block, that of course you have time to do all the things, but you really don't when you're there and an opportunity presents itself, or you are unexpectedly hungry, or you're just so many things. So that's really great. I just want people to know about that, that is available to them.
Yeah. And we, again, take another thing we take for granted. We put everything in there: exhibit hall hours, registration, all that, the flea market. And everybody's always asking, what are the exhibit hall hours? And we're like, but it's in the system. And they're just like, no, I just want to see a sign.
Yeah.
My wife has a master's in sustainability. So I'm like, no, we're not printing paper. My wife will get mad at me. No, look on the phone.
Yeah.
On the phone.
In this day and age, you'd think that would be the go-to, is to look on the phone and not have.
So it's kind of funny. That's another thing. One of the top complaints was internet. That exhibit hall, the halls A through D, where gaming, the hardcore gaming was in the exhibit hall, exhibitors had problems with the internet that came at the convention center. And we went to them. We're like, we have one exhibitor that cannot make transactions, because they were in the back and there was something, and it was definitely their fault, the convention center technology. And then we had gamers going like me. My phone, I walked into A through D where the game library and everything was. My phone went to SOS.
Wow. That's no reception whatsoever.
Nothing. So we need that Wi-Fi situation. And they said that they would be careful because they were going to charge us an arm and a leg for this over-the-top internet. And I go, absolutely, we can't. We can't do that. We're a game convention. We're not some tech Microsoft coming in with $250,000 to spend. And
final question, and then I can let you go. Sure. Now that we've completed this first annual Kubla Fall, what was your favorite personal aspect of the convention, or thing that happened, or something cool? What was your personal favorite?
God, I mean,
it's hard, right?
I think I said it all already. People showed up.
Yeah.
People showed up. People showed up more than we thought. And that just, what a good feeling to say. We trust that you're going to give us what you said or what we thought, but people are looking at us. And we tried a couple different things and they're like, no, just repeat KublaCon. Just repeat KublaCon. So that to me was my favorite part of the whole thing, beyond, of course, seeing friends that I always see that I like and, enjoy talking to. But yeah, that's really, people showed up and it's a big thank you that you did.
Yeah. It's kind of like a vote of trust, I think. The Kubla name means something and people had expectations coming in.
I know, and our staff. I mean, I hate that I didn't say it sooner, but our staff, they're volunteers. Sure, of course, they get to come to the convention for free. Sure, we get them a hotel, so they can work, but they're working and, they're volunteering.
They're not there to enjoy the event. They're there to work the event. Yeah.
Yeah, and they do enjoy things. And this one was really we called it Kubla Light for a while, because we just didn't have a lot of staff. When I said, hey, do you want to take a chance? We're just going to have 800 people and we'll just have a few of you on staff and one here and one there. And everybody's looking at me going, Aldo, oh my God, I need relief. I need to go to the bathroom. I need lunch. I need somebody to cover for me. And we had this is another shout out to the staff community. We had other staff members from Prime that showed up and said, I'll just help. Oh, no, don't worry about it. I already got my own hotel room. I was like, oh my God, that's so nice. I feel so guilty.
Yeah.
But it was so cool that people came out, and someone on staff's wife started helping at registration, and just another friend of ours came out and go, oh, I'll just come hang out with you guys.
Didn't you have staff come out and they were on was it their anniversary or something? They came out.
This was a VIG couple. They celebrated their 1-year wedding anniversary at KublaCon. I think they were from Oregon or Washington or something. I was like, you came to KublaCon Fall from there for your first anniversary? So that was just really, really cool. They were VIGs. You can pay for a VIG badge.
That's amazing.
Again, thank you to everybody who came out, and helped make this a success, to say, yes, we're going to be doing it. We're going to slowly build up, hopefully to, if we can, a full second KublaCon Prime as fall. Will it be 3,600 people anytime soon? Probably not, but that's our aspiration, right? That's our goal. Like, let's just repeat the whole darn thing now.
97 more years, Morty.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time to answer some of these questions. I want everyone to know what these conventions are like. I wish I should have mentioned this earlier when we were talking about the feedback that we got. I don't know if you heard this, but I had interviewed a couple. I had seen them walking around. They were dressed up and it was interesting. And so I went to go talk to them. And they said they've been to KublaCon Prime. And I said, what are your impressions here with KublaCon Fall versus Prime? And the number one thing they said was cozy. And I know this word has come up in conversation this weekend, but they said cozy gaming, right? But they said this convention compared to Prime is very cozy. Everyone feels like laid back and relaxed, and we're just having a good time together. And it's low stress, low stakes. So I just want to give you that feedback in case you hadn't heard that.
And the reason they said that is because the biggest number one complaint at KublaCon Prime is open gaming space tables.
Right.
It's so hard to find that the hotel just puts them in random spots that don't break fire code at Prime. And that's a huge problem. And people just camp at tables for most weekends, or get a, kind of like the cruise ships where people put their stuff down on a lounge chair near the pool. People do that at Prime, and we recognize that problem. And if people don't know, we use the Crown Plaza this year, and we're using them next year for overflow for 2 sectors of the event. Is there a possibility a third sector of the event will move over to Crown Plaza, or a third type of gaming, so we can, be a 2 hotel show with our shuttle going back and forth conveniently? Again, Hyatt Burn Game's such home for Prime, and get that it's crowded. But let me tell people, go to Gen Con with 80,000 people in the exhibit hall, and then talk to me about it. Oh, so many gamers.
Right. So, all right. Well, thank you again for spending
so
time. Everyone, I want you to go check out, if I don't include it in this one video, because I don't want to make a super long video, I will have a separate video with footage of everything at KublaCon Fall so that you can see what it's like. Go check that out. And hopefully we will see everyone at KublaCon Prime, which is what will be coming up next.
Excellent. Thank you so much.